I guess I like being able to see it. Friends, welcome to another very special night of hobby streaming from us here at Tabletop Titans. I'm Zach, and you might recognize the man sitting to my left because he was former Secretary of the UN Kofi Annan's cross-country skiing partner. And he's my dear friend and colleague, Brett Lee. Brett, how's it going?
It's sorry, my legs are a little sore from cross-country skiing earlier.
It's hard.
Yeah. It's going really good.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. And Brett, I have a question for you. Did you know that if you combined all of the world's building materials, including all the world's aluminum, plastic, wood, and steel, it would only be half of the building material compared to how much concrete is used in the world?
Oh my gosh, I did not.
Per ton. I don't know. Again, this is another one of those stats I looked up, and I'm not sure if that's impressive or not. Concrete's heavy.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah, I guess is it by volume or by weight?
Weight.
Probably by weight. Okay.
Yeah.
I think concrete's cheap too, so it makes sense.
We are going to make some concrete today.
Let's do it.
We're excited to make some concrete.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a few special things today. Right after this, let's get creative. Here it is. What you guys see, some concrete, right? Look at this. Foggy concrete, marines on top. What we wanted to show you guys how to make today is great pieces that can block line of sight, but also have other functions. Like they could be ruins or for 40K, or something else for another board or miniatures game. The point is giant slabs of concrete. You can see these slabs that we're making are going to be pretty tall. And when I was talking about making these, I got a few inside tips from Brian. He actually mentioned make sure to make them only 4 inches thick so that if you give them the breachable keyword for Warhammer 40K, we can sneak through them. And also, of course, we want to make them at least 5 inches tall. We're going to add things on top of them, so they're definitely going to be 5 inches tall. But the nice thing here is they're very modular, right? We can add, you can see what we're going to show you guys today actually is what you see here. We're going to make some scatter to put on top of them. And in fact, our scatter is also going to be these oil drums and ammo crates. We're going to use some different kits that we'll talk about here today. But just adding these basic little scatter pieces on top of very simple pink foam and stretching your hobby budget pretty far, actually, when we do this. Getting lots of line of sight blocking on the board, and like we said, if you want, lots of other terrain rules. Brett, how would you use these?
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about these is you can use them for as sort of pseudo area terrain or as sort of impassable, non-breachable line of sight blocking. Essentially as like a rock. But yeah, the idea that infantry can grappling hook over them and jump down the backside makes them different from like a big mountain in the middle of the table.
Yeah, what's nice about these from a rules-wise perspective, I asked Brett, he's a little more in tune with that kind of stuff than me. What makes them interesting, though, I will add, rules-wise, is you could put scatter on top, and if you have models that go on top, you can say, hey, these are ruins. Or you could even count them as an industrial structure and just give them the obscuring keyword, right, if you're playing 9th Ed 40K. So there's a lot of options with these. The other thing from a hobby perspective that I really like about them is that they are super, in addition to easy, they're going to take like anything, right? So we're going to do a few different effects here today on them. You guys can see the one effect we're going to do is the stencil. That's not much of an effect. That's pretty easy, but it's so easy that you're almost a fool not to do it. And we're going to do some hazard striping. As you can see, we have some hazard striping here.
And that looks so good. I love that look.
Yeah, it's nice. And not all of our blocks have it. Some of the other ones we have, I left the gray concrete top. But I wanted the hazard striping. It kind of, I don't know, it brings color to something that's otherwise gray.
Just gray.
Just
yeah.
gray. So we're going to get into it here.
I think another thing you could do with the hazard striping is if you wanted to delineate some of these as being breachable and others as not, you could, if you have a variety of them, you could say, for example, all the ones with hazard striping are breachable, the ones without hazard striping are not, for example.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, yeah, along those lines, when you're stenciling numbers, if you want to just go 1 through 6, you never know. Like you might want to do like a city fight. There have been mission packs that have been released that are like label buildings 1 through 6, and they're the objectives now. Right. I usually do that actually. It doesn't get used maybe 1 out of every 50 times the board gets played with, but it's there. It's easy to do. Why not? You know.
I like it.
Okay, so we've got a few steps going on here today. We're going to start with Brett's going to be doing something a little different than me. We're going to put him on airbrushing our scatter. We do have a lot of scatter to get through. Can we talk about the scatter we're going to be working on?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of these crates here, just little square cubes, and these, and we have some barrels to go with them. These are all 3D printed. These are sort of pre-assembled in a little batch, just so that when you're laying them out on the table, you don't have to lay out 50 barrels all on your table. You can get groups of 5 or 10 of these, and they look really nice and are quick to set up and quick to tear down. I actually will tell you, so Brett is our 3D printer. He does a lot of 3D printing for us. These are not from there. These are from an Etsy shop, and to be honest with you, we were looking up the name of the crates. I totally forgot to look up these, but I'll add them to the video notes. I got into these for exactly the reason you're saying, which is that I get the GW barrels. They look great. They've got the skull. They look amazing. But you can glue them together, and I have done that. I will say that gluing barrels together is slightly harder than you would think because they're round cylinders. Yeah, and they've got these rims around them, so they don't have a nice contact line.
They actually don't have a good... So, you know, Bridget and I did them a few weeks ago. We really glued them directly to the plate ground, not to each other to make clusters. Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, check out that non-scatter scatter video that was 2 weeks ago with Zach and Bridger. You can see us gluing GW barrels. I think the best way to glue GW barrels. These are all lumped together though, kind of like that. Yep. So I did not get those printed by Brett, but Brett did print these cubes. Yeah, so these are from, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's TXARLI Factory. Is the website that we got this from. Yeah, Sarli Factory. Yeah. And then they have a skull on one side, they have a control panel on the other side, and you could scale them, which I think would be cool to do some bigger ones, some smaller ones. And then I just hollowed it, printed out a dozen of them for us to use today, and coming soon to a table near you. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so Brett's gonna get going on airbrushing some of the scatter. We've come up with a couple little paint schemes we'll go over. I'm going to cut some pink foam. We've done this before in the channel, but it's worth going through the process, showing you guys a little bit again. I think re-seeing things over and over is always a good thing. Plus, it's going to be a little different this time because last time Brett and I did hoodoos, we did these natural formations. And today, the goal is to make man-made formations that are not that well made. They're made by servitors of the Imperium, right? They're pouring concrete into, I don't know, molds, and hopefully it comes out great. A lot of it probably breaks along the way in the process. I like the fact that, I mean, one of the things I noticed, I mean, the concrete blocks you use on the Mars board are very similar to these, and they look, you know, almost intentionally crooked. Like and sometimes when you're working with pink foam, you're trying to hide the lines between the layers. This one, you're just leaning into it. You're like, this is made from a series of 5 prefabricated slabs. They got stacked together, bolted together with some rebar, and that's what make this block from. Yeah. Okay, so Brett, if we could do a little over the shoulder, I want to show folks how I kind of do this. So I do use a T-square. You guys have seen me use this before. I love this tool for cutting pink foam. What I've done here is I have marked out some spots here because, like I said earlier, we want to make these less than 5 inches thick, but we do want to make them more than, well, we want to make them at least 5 inches tall so that when we, you know, stick things on top of them, they're well over 5 inches tall. Here, though, you can see I've marked out some areas, some lines every 4 inches on my pink foam here. What I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to use the Citadel mold line remover, and I'm just putting in these lines for myself to cut with my pink foam cutter. Nice and easy.
And so these are, you're going to cut them eventually, but you're just essentially drawing on the foam.
That's right. And actually, I will tell you guys, if you want to make these and you don't have a pink foam cutter, I will maybe show you a little way. We'll try it on air. I did it earlier today, that you can do this without a pink foam cutter. Here we go. Let's give it a try. We'll switch to front. This will be more entertaining if it fails, and we're at front. You can. I have to get up for this.
Point it the other way. Oh,
there you go. You can pretty much do this. So if you perforate it enough and you don't have the pink foam wire cutter, you know, we looked at the hoodoos a few weeks ago. I strongly recommend a pink foam wire cutter for that. You could probably make these without a pink foam wire cutter. So if you wanted to get into doing some pink foam work and you want to skip out on the wire cutter for your first rodeo, make these blocks because there you go.
The jagged edge looks totally fine.
Yeah, it's going to add. It's going to be exciting, actually. I think.
Yeah.
Exciting's a strong word, but it's somewhere in between.
Score it with a butter knife and cut it with your knee. Break it with your knee.
Don't reuse that butter knife to eat with, though, because, as we've discussed, pink foam, not exactly like the.
Not edible.
Not edible at all. Okay, well, that's actually the problem. I guess it is edible. You just don't want to eat it, you know. Okay, that said, I'm going to go and cut this. So, Brett, if we could do a little over the shoulder. We do have a fan running today, folks. Last time Brett and I worked with pink foam, I don't think we did. So here we go, just slicing through, nice and easy. Really, some of the more boring pink foam work we're going to do because, like I said, you barely even need a wire cutter to accomplish this. You can pretty much just like Karate Kid it into even chunks. But we are going to use the wire cutter to do a little bit of shaping because we do want it to have like a look of some kind of chipping has happened. And like Brett said, we actually, you know, I kind of envision that these are built by like I said, servitors and like, you know, practically automated, but not.
Yeah. Automated assembly, yeah.
Yeah, servitors are kind of like, they're not that bright, right? Is that fair to say? I don't want to offend any servitors out there, but in the 40K world, they're kind of limited in what they can do. Is that fair to say, Brett? Do you know?
You know, so I think it varies a lot. I think some servitors are probably doing advanced astropathic navigational computations, and other servitors are doing rote mundane tasks.
Other servitors are pouring concrete blocks.
Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so this is it. We're going to make 5. The nice thing about pink foam, typically, at least the ones I get, are 1 inch thick. So you know that if you stack 5 on top of each other, you're at 5 inches. You probably could, actually ended up with 6 there, you actually probably could stack, only 4 and accomplish it that way as well. But then, you know, with this way, like, I like having them 5. The guys on the stream, sometimes we set up terrain like 90 minutes before the show, and sometimes we set up terrain like 10 minutes before the show. And so you can, if you look closely, I think you guys will usually be able to tell the difference, how lengthy, how much time was spent.
Well, it's just, is there moss or not, right?
It's like, there's like a hierarchy, right? And it's like, are there large pieces that block line of sight? And that's it. That's like 10 minutes before, right? If scatter makes an appearance and moss makes an appearance, you know that like we went into like an hour before.
Yeah.
So here it is, nice and simple. It's perfect. It's 5 inches tall, perfect for 9th at 40K. 5 inches tall, gonna block line of sight, gonna be obscuring. 4 inches wide, gives infantry this kind of advantage over other models, which, let's face it, they should have, right?
And you talked about why having a 4-inch width is important, so that you can because it's breachable, you can, if you're deployed immediately behind it, you can, with the 6-inch move, walk entirely through it.
Yeah, and here's the thing: if you're like a 5-inch moving Terminator, maybe you can't.
Maybe you have to advance.
And maybe that's how it should be, right?
Yeah.
Personally, I actually like to make a mix of ones that are breachable and either ones that are not, or they're too thick.
Right.
Because as a Tau player, like fly should still matter.
Fly should matter.
I like that fly matters. I don't necessarily feel like I'm loving a 20-man like Necron Warrior squad suddenly being on the other side of this wall, like it's no problem, So
Yeah.
I get it. I get why we want that, and okay, very easy steps here, guys. We've got this. What we're gonna do now is, well, there's two ways we could do it. We could glue it and then cut it, or we could cut it then glue it. Why would I do one versus the other? Well, the big thing about your pink foam wire cutter is it likes to cut pink foam. We've chatted a bit about this before. It does not like to cut glue. And what that means is if you go to cut glue and you actually get this guy into some glue, there's a high likelihood that you'll break the wire, which isn't a big deal. It's just that you then have to replace the wire, so you gotta unplug it, you gotta do the whole putting the wire back on. The wire never broke the last time we cut pink foam.
It didn't, and the one time I borrowed your wire cutter to do an unrelated project, I forgot that advice that you gave me. You definitely gave me that advice before you gave it to me. You were like, multiple times, you're like, don't glue, then cut. But I forgot and did it anyway. And you can get through it if you're really slow and careful, but
exactly.
It increases the odds that you break your friend's wire cutter.
Yeah, which is okay. It's not breaking the wire cutter, it's just the wire. Brett, if we look top down for a second, I will show you guys a couple of workarounds on this, because frankly, I prefer to glue than cut. And the reason for that is it just kind of makes it easier to shape. So here's a couple of things you can do. First, when you put your glue on, just avoid the edges. It's going to stick anyway. I'm using PVA glue in the US. That's, of course, the brand name Elmer's. We know it. We love it. Here in the US, they make us start like ingesting this at preschool level, so we're all into it. Then here, same thing, we're just doing the stack. Now, the other thing I'm gonna do after I make my, just like a little hot dog, right? Like ketchup or mustard on a hot dog. After we make our stack, it's still gonna slip around while we are working, but it's still just like a little nicer to cut. Honestly, you'll see here in a second. We could let it dry before we cut it, but then you really might have the problem Brett was talking about. Like things are gonna, if it hits the glue, you could break the wire. So if you cut through the glue while the glue's still wet, you're not gonna actually have that problem. That's what I'm gonna. Well, it'll be okay. This one, I almost intentionally didn't want this one on top. It's got like some weird scoring on top of it, like weird zigzag lines. I'm not sure what. Looks like I like try to, like when you guys like, you get a pen and you're like, is this pen working? You like do some scribbling. Yeah. It looks like I did that on it.
Well, I think that needs to be intentional. We should make that into some scarring, some battle damage, some weathering.
I don't know.
Yeah, there we go.
Not sure. I'm not really into this. Here, I'll do this. Just a little improvising here, guys. Here's the thing. I have no idea why these dots are here on this piece of on this foam block, but nobody's ever going to say, "Hey, you're killing my immersion. What are those dots on top of your foam block?" I guess they probably wouldn't have said that about my pen scribbles either. So maybe I'm overdoing it. Okay, after we've got it, it's glued. It's still flexible. I can swerve it around a little bit, but it is still kind of sticky. It's good enough. So what I'm going to do is just shave off a little bit of texture, kind of make things look interesting. Like I was saying earlier, I'm sort of imagining that like whoever made these made 5 slabs, and then they sat there and used like server haulers or whatever they're called to lay one slab on top of the other one at a time. I'm not imagining like a nicely poured and shaped single block. If I was imagining that, I would definitely do this a very different way, and wouldn't be a project I'd necessarily super recommend.
Yeah, that's not the look we're going for.
Yeah, not the look we're going for. A little tougher, not that hard, but you guys could handle it with the right tools. But this is just so easy. And you saw, like, again, barely even need a pink foam wire cutter. And by barely, I mean truly you don't. You'd also miss out on this step that I'm doing right now, though, which is a little bit of shaping here that I
Yeah, and I think that
looks good.
does add a lot.
It adds a lot. Again, speaking of adding a lot, strongly, if you guys have some hobby friends, some hobby folks, you got your cohort right in your area, strongly recommend the pink foam wire cutter as like a mutual investment tool.
Yeah, go in on it. Split the cost. That's good advice.
Definitely. Okay, and that's it. So we can kind of stop whenever. Here, I'm going to stop on this guy. That's it. We could call this. It's a nice block. I'm going to let it dry before I paint it, because then, you know, when we start painting it, we do definitely move it around a lot. So I usually like to let the glue dry before I paint it. What was the type of brush? What's that brush called? You knew the name of it. That like sponge brush?
Chip brush.
Chip brush. It's in the paste bin for this episode. I listed the stuff that we used. So everything is in that paste bin underneath the video. And this is it. So we're gonna set this to dry. We have a few here that I've already made that we're gonna be working on, including this block and this, which is the steps. Now, real quick, to make the steps, you guys probably saw, actually, Brett, if we can switch to the glam cam, we can see the step one here. So you guys see the steps there. The steps also pretty crude looking. To get those steps, I pretty much just took a 1-inch strip of the pink foam and carefully sliced it in half to make these like 1/2-inch steps. They are not.
That's
like,
impressive.
You know, if you were going to go up those steps in real life, like it wouldn't be great. You wouldn't love that. But that's okay because it's not real life. And
it's the grim darkness of the 41st millennium.
First of all, it's like totally not OSHA compliant. And if
There's no railing.
There's no railing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, OSHA, by the way, I realize not everyone's in the U.S. is like, what is it, Occupational Safety and Hazard Association, something like that.
And health.
Yeah, it makes sure people aren't like breathing in like coal dust and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
and that there's railings on your stairways, on your gangplanks.
Yeah. So anyway, fairly easy to get that look. But we are moving on. We're going to move on to our next steps here. So our next step, well, Brett, you're still airbrushing some scenery there?
Yeah,
Great.
I'm taking my sweet time.
Please do. The gray ones are ready for, the crates are ready for the...
I have 3 more crates left.
3 more crates. Okay, great. Let's talk about some roadblocks. We called this episode roadblocks to success no longer, because the goal is...
There was some foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing, right? But we want to say, like, let's make some easy pink foam work, like even easier than the hoodoos. That goes such a long way. And while we were doing it, we thought that Brett and I would like to actually share with you guys some of our roadblocks to hobby success.
Oh my gosh, this is like the moment of vulnerability.
Yeah, Brett, you're actually up first too.
Okay,
Can we look at your roadblocks to hobby success? Let's talk about these.
So Zach asked me to think about my top 3 roadblocks to hobby success, and after considering for a while, as we do, we always be considering, I decided my top roadblock, and so there's two themes here. One is, what are things that are current roadblocks to future hobby success, and what are things that have in the past been roadblocks that we've overcome as hobbyists? And so this first one is one that used to be a roadblock for me, painting basic troops. I used to hate this. I felt like, you know, I've just got to get through these guys to get onto the more interesting models that I really want to paint. You know, I've got to get through, it's, you know, 20 copies of the same model with slightly different poses. It's just assembly line them, get them done as quickly as possible so that I can play games. It was like a tax, basically.
Yeah.
I've changed my opinion on that now. I feel like, because what ends up happening is, the models that, you know, I spent a bunch of time a year ago or so on a Yuvara, and I put probably a year into converting.
This is like the fancy one of the Forge World Riptides.
The Forge World Riptide, yeah. I probably spent a year, like half of 2019 and half of 20 building and painting that model, and I've used it like 3 times just because the rules changed and I didn't love the way it played anymore, and it's sort of a bit of a gotcha in some games if your opponent doesn't know it's coming. Like it generates some salt. So, and plus it's like 400 points. So, how often do you want to put? Anyway, my point is, the 9-point Fire Warrior makes it into every single game I play. It's on the table all the time, and so it makes a whole lot more sense to spend time painting the things that you're going to play with every single day. And so as soon as I had that sort of paradigm shift, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at these 9-point dudes every single time I play Warhammer. These are the guys I should be spending all of my time and energy on because I want to feel good about them when I pull them out of the case.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, like the fact that they're hard and take up all this time, that'll in and of itself, right? But good, like you were just like, oh man, I'm gonna have a paradigm shift of thinking, and you were just like, I'm gonna will myself into loving this. But I think it's a good reason, right? Like you're gonna get a lot of mileage. I mean, I always think about that whenever I paint up a new unit. I always think about that. I'm like, Brett and I are, well, we don't have to say Brett's age, but I'm like almost 40. Brett's also around there. Like we hope to live for a while. Like I might play with some of these units for many decades to come, right?
Yeah.
Like so.
Right. We'll be doing this for a while.
It's gonna be it's a big payout, and like you said, troops are just always there.
We're gonna be using them for a while. All
my
right,
guess. Sorry, Brett.
Should I go on to number 2?
Well, I was just gonna say my guess is that you're not alone on that.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like guard players or orc players, right?
A lot of people talk about painting basic troops as being a thing that they struggle with, and they, use their elites and heavy support as like, oh, I'll allow myself to paint this HQ once I've gotten through this troops unit. Yeah. Like they'll save it as a reward for, but at some point, if you always think, I mean, that's one way to deal with it. But like, honestly, I think that it can be a reward in and of itself if you think about it the right way. And that's kind of what the approach I wanted to take. All right, second one.
Oh, can I get those last 2 crates?
Yes.
Just so you guys know, real quick, while Brett moves on to hobby roadblock number 2, what I'm doing here real quick is I am putting a little bit of effort. We talked about being scatter and wanting low effort scatter. I'm doing a little bit of work on here, like Brett showed you guys earlier. We're just painting this. There's like a little computer panel thing on these crates. So I'm just I'm using Reaper miniature tarnished brass to give it like a little brassy kind of a look.
We had the 2 that were finished there. I can put one of them on the glam.
Oh yeah, boom. Well, it's actually not finished. We still have to.
Yeah.
So this has been tinted. Brett's going to put it on the camera here. It's been tinted. We're going to tint everything. And to that end, look at the tiny little crate. To that end, we need to paint everything before we tint it, right? There's a little panel you can see. It is so cute there. Look at it just spinning around. I love it. So we want to paint the panel, and then on this side, there's like, it's the Grimdark, so there's a skull with some laurels. We used one of the Baoki markers on that. And then there's also little, are they divots or rivets?
Rivets.
Rivets, thank you. Little rivets on the panels here. And we also used the Baoki marker on that. We used the silver one. So we do have some brushwork on this that we need to crank out before we tint.
Yeah.
After tinting, the very last thing we're going to do, actually probably the very last thing we're going to do today at all is dry brush these a little bit. Just put a little dry brushing on them. I'm actually thinking I might play around here. Oh, that was done. That was fast. Okay. I'm actually thinking I might play around with some of that oxide. I picked up some of that.
Oh, because I was like, why? Because you need to use the airbrush for.
Yeah, but it's okay.
Okay.
We're good. Yeah, I might play around with a little bit of the brass tarnishing stuff on these guys too. See, might be kind of cool. So
right,
roadblock 2.
Yeah, roadblock number 2. Airbrushing. So this was something that I'm in the process of getting over. So
literally right now.
I owned an airbrush. I've owned an airbrush for more than 10 years. And I basically never used it until like a year ago. And this was really just because I was terrified of it. It was a fear thing. I was worried that I would mess up my model. I was worried that, I would spend a bunch of time doing some work on it and then pick up the airbrush and invalidate all of the work that I had already done.
Which is scary.
And I feel like I've heard that sentiment from a lot of people actually, that airbrushing is scary. And I'll tell you how I got over it. I forced Zach to come over to my house and sit with me for 2 hours and show me how to do all the things. And so basically, just walk me through his process, and then every time I could just ask, every 30 seconds, stop and ask him a question, and then that did it. Now I feel comfortable using my airbrush. And so my recommendation is if you have, you can watch all the YouTube videos in the world. You can, do some practice models. That helps a lot too. But at the end of the day, talking with somebody who has experience using the tool makes a huge difference, and I highly recommend it. And so find your local Zach, and buy them a bottle of wine, and ask them to come over and spend a couple hours with you. And at the end of that, you'll be a new person.
I like red. I like more so Italian, but a New World Zin is always good. And Italian, of course, not so good unless you've got food with it. So that's all it takes, guys.
All right, and then number three, finding the right brushes.
This is a good one, actually. Well, they're all good, but this is a really good one.
I have not solved this one yet. So you see the theme here. We went from one that I had solved to one that I'm in the process of solving. I have not found my paintbrush yet. So I currently use paintbrushes from Rosemary & Co. They're a UK-based artists company. It's not specifically a miniature painting brush. And they're affordable. They seem to be of decent quality, but I also find that I ruin them pretty quickly. And so I'm not gotten to the bottom of whether it's me ruining them, whether they're not great brushes to begin with, or whether I'm just buying the wrong style, the wrong bristle type. I suspect it's a combination of all of the above, and I think there's also a piece of it that is conditioning. I've not dipped my toe into the waters of brush shampoo and brush conditioner and stuff like that. And I feel like that would also go a long way to solving my issue.
This came up right at the end of last stream. Somebody asked if we lick our brushes.
Yes, yeah. And that's actually what made me think of it.
Right, and we were talking actually, I think you and I were talking either on the stream or after the stream about just different gels and stuff out there and to clean. And I will say, I use this AK, it's just a cleaner. And I actually, I use it for my airbrush, but then from brushes, I pour a little bit in here and just like roll the brush around. And I will say that helps, but I'm with you. Finding the right brush, like I'm always wondering I'm like, this brush is okay. Could it be better?
Is there a brush out there that's better that I just don't know about yet?
That will make me feel like I'm a better painter.
Yeah, and I've heard people who spend, $20+ on Winsor & Newton something or other, and they love it, and it sounds like they have a great experience. I've never had that experience myself. But
yeah. Have you bought one?
I have not. Maybe that's the next thing I need to do. I don't know.
Yeah, I've gotten one, and I found it to be fine.
It's fine, yeah.
Frankly,
is it like 10x as good as a $2 brush? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly I use a lot of Citadel. Which I get some flack for. They probably overcharge, but I find them okay. I try to maintain them. I do try to make sure paint doesn't get down like in the bottom.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it is making sure that the ferrule doesn't get clogged with paint. Which I have since, I used to not paid any attention to that at all, and now I make sure that I don't do that. Anyway, those are my 3 roadblocks to hobby success.
Well, thanks.
Why don't we? Do you want to share some?
Yeah,
of yours?
let's look here. Okay, so I've got 3 as well, and the first one was actually also Brett gave me 5. He sent me 5, and this one him and I both shared. It's space. It's a hobby space. Now you see us here working in the studio, and it looks like we've got an amazing setup? And quite honestly, we do. Like, this is an amazing setup here at the studio. We're very lucky. That said, we have to come set this up, right? We have to make this. We tear this down. I do work here throughout the week, other than the stream and stuff like that. I think Adrian works here a little bit. In fact, I know he does. So we do work here. So we have to kind of tear this down. You know, it's tough. At home, I'm always kind of like rotating between projects. I've always got my terrain going on. I've got 3 armies that I do kind of regularly. Now, that's made it tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I think there are people who are lucky enough to have a space that they can leave set up as a permanent hobby space, and that makes such a big difference. If you have a room in your house that is your hobby room, like it is night and day. And then you sort of hear. You know, I'm lucky enough to have a desk that I just do hobby at in the garage, but you know, I have friends who live in a studio apartment, and they have one desk and they use it for their work, and they use it for their hobby, and they use it for their computer, and they use it for it plays a lot of it has to wear a lot of different hats, that desk, and they have to reset it up in between, and so all their paints have to be modular, and the minis have to go away when they're done with their painting session, and just having the ability to leave your stuff in place and then come back to it means that extra 10 minutes of setup and tear down at the beginning and end of a hobby session just doesn't exist, and you can sit down, paint for 20 minutes when you have 20 minutes, and then stand up and go do something else.
You know, now that I think about it, in some ways, you and I have it kind of in the worst, because you and I have a similar situation, which is like we have an area, right, and we can mostly leave it set up, but it's not like a whole room, right? So in some ways, it's almost like the worst, because we haven't got like those people that you're talking about that are, from our viewpoint, like, I'm like, oh, I feel bad for those people that have to set everything up the whole time. They probably get really good at it, right? Like, you and I are like in this like middle ground where like we're not good at that, but we also don't have the room to just like let everything go all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I actually, like, I'm in this mode where I experiment a lot with different hobby setups. Like, I'm not shy about just completely destroying my hobby setup and reimagining it just as a, to try something different. And I went from having one hobby desk where I just painted and modeled, and I got frustrated tearing down all of my paints to like set up all of my modeling stuff. Right. And so I actually like made room in the garage for a second table, so I have like a painting table and a modeling table, and then there's the 3D printing. Like, it's expanding, but yeah, it's but I'm not sure that makes enough of a difference to justify the space it consumes, because I had to like do a bunch of rearranging of other stuff anyway. We're going off on a tangent here.
Well, it's we all suffer, you know.
What is your second roadblock to hobby success?
My second one here is a stylistic stagnation, and what I mean when I'm talking about this is I have sort of some styles that I like to paint my models in, and I have some styles I like to do my terrain in, and I love sharing those styles with you guys. But I'm always sort of finding that it's good to have a style in any kind of creative endeavor. It is. But I do have to really actively try to pull something new in, and I'm always doing that. I'm always trying to pull in, especially kind of grittier stuff. In the Bay Area, we have a lot of guys who kind of have a similar hobby style for Heresy and Necromunda. Friends of ours, they paint like these really gritty styles, and I love it. It's just really not me. So I'm always kind of looking like one or two things to do that. Usually that means like just weathering more and more. But I'm always finding that I want something different, and sometimes I'm like, someone will be like, oh, well, you should try this then, or you should try that, and I look and I'm like, yeah, I don't like that. And then that's this, right? That's exactly the problem. The final thing I would say is making washes look clean. Typically, I don't have to make washes look clean.
Right. They're there to make they're there as a weathering effect, really.
Usually, or shading, right?
Shading, yeah.
So when I'm shading recesses, I'm fine at that. I'm comfortable where I am there. Here, we're going to use it for tinting. But as far as kind of using a wash, like in a final layer, you guys have heard me use the term a messy layer, right?
Yeah.
As far as doing that, I don't know that it has to be messy. You know, I think it can be clean. It's hard to do. I've had limited success, but it's something that it's like I said, it's like a roadblock. I don't look at it and go, oh, can't wait to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm always kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this. So there we go. Roadblocks, hobby roadblocks to success.
Yeah. Why don't you guys in chat, if you have some of your thoughts on things that you struggled with, let us know.
Chat and Discord. I'm kind of like I'll see it a little bit here in chat, but in Discord, always kind of interested in seeing that. I know a lot of people say airbrush. I know a lot of people say just terrain in general. Thank you.
I can, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably good. We can work with that.
Yeah, we can, this is enough.
Awesome. Actually, let me have this. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to just wrap up a little airbrush cleaning here. Can I get the water squeezy?
Absolutely.
And then Brett and I are, well, I'm going to start showing you guys how to paint these concrete slabs. At least one way of painting the concrete slabs. So what I'll be using is a few different grays. I have Citadel paints. I'll show you them here in a second. But if you're not using Citadel, more or less what we're looking for is a kind of a medium dark gray. Mine is going to be the Mechanicus standard gray. So that would be like not nearly as gray as like one of the black grays, like Corvus black, which we're going to use a little bit later for hazard striping also. So sort of like a medium dark gray, kind of like a medium gray, and frankly, I hate to say this, but a medium light gray, not like an almost white gray, right? So we want to use, that would be my recommendation. With terrain, you know, the thing is, we are going to, like I said, tint it back down. So how bright it looks when we're done painting it won't be anywhere close to where it's at when the product is finished. You were observing this earlier.
Yeah, the tinting has a strong effect.
It has a very strong effect, right? And so what you really end up with is, we talked about, like, I know it's being a little goofy, but we were talking about like what color lives there, right?
Yeah.
And we were kind of talking about that, and so that's what you're doing. You're building up a few colors that live on the block, and then in this case the block, and then after that you are tinting it to kind of knock everything back down, so models pop on it a little bit.
Right. And the tinting will get in the recesses, and it'll have sort of a bit of a pin washing or a shading effect.
So first thing I'm going to start with is this Mechanicus Standard Gray. And we're actually going to breeze right through this because the cool thing about using all of these different types of grays to accomplish this is really don't need to clean my airbrush out that much. I'm really just not that worried about it. So here we go, starting with Mechanicus Standard Gray, airbrushing some pink foam. I believe that repetition makes us great, and so that's repetition of act, but also hearing things over and over again. And you guys have heard from me a million times, if you're a little nervous about terrain and you're a little nervous about airbrushing, this combo right here, such a good place to get started. Look at this. I'm like literally doing nothing that requires any skill other than just, spraying an airbrush, spraying something. There's a little bit of pink here on the foam. Still visible. I'm not super worried if they're small amounts. Now, by the way, and this is listed in the paste bin, by the way, I did pre-paint the pink foam with Rust-Oleum brand indoor-outdoor black paint latex primer. I get that from a hardware store, and I use like Brush said earlier, I use a chipping Brett, like Brush told us about. Just kidding. Yeah. I use a chipping brush, like Brett told us about.
And Zach, can you remind us why you prime your pink foam with latex house paint?
Well, you can't use aerosol can. It'll melt it, right? But as you showed me earlier today, God, my God, why am I like calling you? Brett brought in. This is a good joke though. Brett brought in. I'm gonna roll with this for the rest of the stream. He brought in his airbrush primer, and it was pretty great. It looks great. This is actually what we primed the crates in. I haven't really used it, and so I think I'm sold. I
swear by this stuff.
Yeah,
It's
the Vallejo.
The Vallejo product, yeah. And it's It's an acrylic polyurethane mix, so the polyurethane is what gives it the extra strength over just a straight acrylic paint. It allows it to stick better to the substrate. So it's, as in my experience, as durable as a rattle can, but you can apply it through an airbrush, which means that it doesn't have the propellant. It's the propellant in the rattle can that is what dissolves the pink foam. And so you can apply this directly to pink foam without it dissolving, and you have a lot more fine control over where you apply it. So if you are priming a model, for example, I'm sure we've all been there. You've got some nooks and crannies that are recesses in the model that are sort of underneath an arm or something like that. And you do broad strokes with your rattle can, and that recessed area doesn't collect any paint on it. You don't want to get too close with the rattle can because you don't have any ability to fine tune the amount of paint that you're spraying. And so you just if you were to do that, you would get lots of pooled paint that would obscure detail. But when you're applying your primer with an airbrush, you can get real close, you can modulate the amount of paint that you're applying, and just apply it into the areas that the broad strokes missed, which is a huge deal. I feel like that, if you don't apply paint or primer through an airbrush, you end up with these areas of the model that you just have to accept as being unprimed, because otherwise, if you were to try to prime them, you'd end up losing detail.
I was telling you when we were chatting about this earlier that I don't 100% agree with you on that, but actually I pretty much do. I think you could be insane and go back and kind of squat down and that's actually what I frequently do.
And I think the answer is if you don't have an airbrush and you have to use rattle can primer, is you just accept that there are some parts of the model that are not going to have full coverage with the primer, and that's okay. It's not, you don't have to get complete coverage with primer. That's why you're following it up with a base coat.
So, just did Mechanica Standard Gray.
Yep.
I'm moving on to Dawnstone.
I like that you're not even really applying full coverage here. It's just you're allowing some of the black to show through.
Well, we want that, right? We actually want
feature.
Yeah, we don't. And here's the deal. I don't. You could get super granular and say why am I showing this coloration? And by granular, I mean you could be scientific. You might have that friend who shows up and goes, wait, why is it slightly different color right here? And I don't know. It's going to be used in a messy industrial kind of area. This is actually for a board. Well, we haven't actually talked about this yet, but we've been, up until now, everything we've been doing up until now has been for the Canyon, the Fortress Canyon board, which the guys used on the stream last week. This is actually, we're touching up an old board that I have. It's I call it the Taiga board, or it's like a boreal forest, like a northern pine forest, with lots of tall pine trees.
And up till now, it's just been a completely natural formation. It's just been hills and trees and rocks.
That's right, all wilderness. So what we're doing is we're going through and we're adding, my inspiration for the kind of stuff we're adding is actually the nuclear disaster site Chernobyl. And so we're kind of going through and we're making a lot of industrial stuff, and with these pine trees, surrounding everything, kind of grown up through it.
So the nature is reclaimed after the natural disaster, or the man-made disaster.
Yeah, but and I've done that look a little bit before, the nature reclaiming kind of a ruined city. But I've always done it sort of in a setting that I have to say by what I've done is either a jungle or a subtropical somewhere southern U.S., somewhere where there's not a freeze cycle, a winter cycle. Yeah. So we're approaching it a little bit differently because it's not absolutely encapsulated in these vivid greens and there's time when all the plants, well, not conifers, but conifers they're not vines, right? They're not spreading green all over everything. So a little more subdued in that way. Yep. We're actually going to tint with the same tint we used in the Canyon board, which is different from a tropical setting. I use Beal Tan.
And the intro video we showed, that was with the taiga terrain. You had the trees there.
That's right.
So that will give you a little sense of the look we're going for with these concrete blocks after we're finished. Okay,
so last couple touch-up areas. Touch-up's not quite the right word. Touch-in? I don't know. just hitting a couple little areas with administrative gray. This is, as you guys can see, this is all, the super light gray. So again, if you're not using Citadel products, it's a light gray, but I would, for me, there are some grays that a lot of different paint companies make that are like almost whites, right? This one I don't think quite falls into that category. This one is still solidly a gray. So I'm not using a lot. The lighter the paint gets, the gray gets, a little bit the less I use. So use the most kind of Mechanicus standard, and going to use the least amount of this. This area right here, actually I've already finished. This is the hazard stripe. We are going to do a hazard stripe on top of this guy that we're going to show you. So me doing any kind of painting up here is actually sort of pointless. Here, same thing. Don't really need to do anything there because our hazard stripe is eventually going to go there. Again, we will get to the hazard stripe here in a second. I just want to show you guys, only one hazard stripe, because it does kind of take a while, the taping off, which is actually where we are now. Brett, are you ready to tape off?
Yeah, I can tape off.
Yeah. There you go. A little wet, but
Wait till it's dry.
It's okay. You can
All right.
wait. You can kind of wait till it's dry.
Put it in front of the fan.
Oh yeah, there you go. The Mechanicus standard is, or the administrative gray. We just want that to get a little bit dry so we don't yank it off there with the tape.
Yeah.
So hazard stripes. Let's talk hazard stripes.
Yeah.
Very easy on terrain. It's a great place, again, just like everything we do over and over again. Constantly saying it's great to get started on terrain with this. So let's talk a little bit about the process and what you're going to need. We're going to use 2 yellows. We're going to use kind of like a dark yellow. Again, I'm using Citadel paints mostly today. The dark yellow I'm using is called Averland Sunset, and then the bright yellow is Phalanx Yellow. That's actually kind of a newer color that GW's released. I think it had another name previously.
The dark yellow has a lot of orange in it.
Yeah.
And to me, it looks like almost the dark yellow is like a weathered version of the light yellow. Like to me, the way this reads is it all started as light yellow, and then the dark yellow areas are where it's sort of starting to wear away, and you're seeing the black underneath it coming through.
I think that's what I would say was the goal.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Now, so you need, like I said, 2 yellows. One that's a little darker, one that's a little more vivid.
Yep.
And then I'm going to use Abaddon black, and that's like black. Like I almost never use that actually. That's like super black. And then Corvus black, which is again the like kind of gray black that GW has. I love that color. I use it by contrast to Abaddon black all the time. I especially love the 2 of them in conjunction with each other though.
Yeah.
And then we're going to use painter's tape, which is this blue tape. I think it also comes in green.
Frog tape.
Frog
yeah.
tape, right?
And you can use normal masking tape. It just is usually a little bit too sticky, and you worry about it pulling paint off
kinda like-
when you pull it up. So the trick you can do is, I think you hinted at this the other day. You can like stick it down
yeah,
onto a
couple
piece of
times.
newsprint or something a couple times, just to like consume or use up some of its adhesive, and then before you put it on your model.
Yeah.
But yeah, this blue stuff is specially formulated to not pull your paint up with it when you take it up.
I think it's dry enough. It's still a little wet.
Okay.
And here's the thing. When you take the tape off, it's going to pull some of that layer off, and it's going to look like a mess, but it's terrain.
It's terrain.
It's going to look great.
Okay.
There's the tape. So Brett got put on masking duty. If you guys watched last week, he's like kind of into this. The other thing I'm going to have Brett do, Brett help me.
You want to give me some
today.
direction here?
Yeah,
Should
Brett
I
helps.
just-
Well, you know how to mask.
I know, but do you want me to like go straight? Do you want me to
So,
go diagonal?
don't-
I'm assuming you want me to go diagonal.
No, you don't need to do any of that masking yet. I'm going to show that in a second.
Oh, okay.
We actually need to paint the yellow
Around the
before
edges,
doing
you
that.
want me to do
Yeah,
that.
so you're just doing around the edges. Now, one of the things, Brett, if you can hand me the one next to you
Yeah.
here. One of the things you guys see is, and we'll put this back on Glam Cam in a sec, but you'll notice that when we were carving the pink foam, we carved chips out of the edge here, and we did it on this one that we did earlier today as well. You guys can see the chipping here. Brett, can we actually go over the shoulder here for a second? So you can see we've got like the chipping here. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Like this. And we actually don't want that to be yellow or hazard stripey, because the effect here is that the hazard stripe was there. You know, these guys, being in the 41st millennium, got into some kind of fight. Someone was shooting at them, and like they hit the concrete, right? So we put the chipping into it, but we don't want the chipping to get painted like the hazard stripe. So we're going to be using this now. Yeah, I can show here, and this is AK. I've been using a lot of AK products recently. They're very well stocked at our local game store, and it's great stuff. Adrian, I know, uses Silly Putty. I had a sensation when I began to use this the other day for the first time. This AK airbrush masking putty, it's called. I did have a strong sensation that this was definitely pretty much Silly Putty. I'm not sure that that's the case. I don't think so. But
it was definitely pretty much Silly Putty.
It has, it has this one attribute that makes Silly Putty very famous that I can demo here. You guys know Silly Putty. It's so malleable and it's so great.
It feels a lot like it.
It feels a lot like it. And it does this one very unique thing where like you start to pull it and it stretches, right? But if you pull it kind of quick,
it like breaks.
It breaks suddenly. Like it has like that kind of satisfying Silly Putty
a little
snap
yeah.
to it, right? So this has that. I think it's also a little bouncy. Yep. So very similar to Silly Putty.
If it walks and talks like Silly Putty, maybe it's Silly Putty.
Yeah, so Adrian swears by Silly Putty when he does this. So I don't know, maybe it's, kind of weirdly, because I'm like in the hobby world, I knew easily how to get this, and I didn't really think like, how do I get Silly Putty? Of course, like probably just Amazon, right, or something.
Yeah.
But
Walmart or something. Yeah.
So okay,
we're good.
Brett's then going to be stuffing some of this.
I'm gonna stuff some Silly Putty into these cracks.
Into the cracks, and so he's stuffing those down into the chips that we carved, so that when we airbrush here, I'm going to get set up to do the hazard striping. When we airbrush, it doesn't turn them into hazard stripes.
Yeah. So I'm just going to fill these gaps where the chips are with putty. Oh, paint's still wet.
That's okay.
I guess we know the answer to that. And you don't have to be super detailed with this. You're just trying to, because if a little bit of yellow sort of spills over, then you can either clean it up afterwards or it's fine because it's terrain and a little bit of yellow is allowed to spill over.
Yeah.
In your imagined 41st millennium Chernobyl buildings.
Unfortunately, for those living in the 41st millennium, I imagine, and certainly not to make light of the real life situation, but I do imagine that Chernobyl situations happen a little more in the 41st millennium.
Yeah. When nobody knows how to use
anything, almost anything.
Yeah,
really,
it's
right?
all just.
It's like, it's like when I don't know if any of you guys have had this experience when you were younger, and like it's like maybe the late 90s, and you set your computer up for your parents, and you need them to not touch anything while you go off to college, because like if you stop getting emails, they're gonna call, and you just know right then and there that I can't figure out how to open Yahoo, or your father did something and Yahoo's not working now, and you're like, and now you got to go back and reset the computer. Of course, you go back and it's like one thing, right? It's like, oh, you're not typing .com, and it's
right.
The 90s, so what's the browser in the 90s?
Alta Vista.
Oh,
web crawler.
Web crawler, right? Like they don't know how to work without .com. Anyway, we've all been there. That's sort of the tech level, right, in the 41st millennium. So I'm sure there's your occasional nuclear explosions because
somebody forgot to type .com, yeah.
Yeah, because they're just like, I don't know, it's beeping. I don't know what to do. Is it supposed to do this?
Yeah. It's not producing my my regurgitated rations.
Brett, before we hop onto the hazards here, as you finish up, if you want to hit vid 2, I wanted to show. Brett mentioned the blocks that we have here on the Mars board. This is something else kind of cool you can do with these blocks. I actually didn't use our normal Mars mat for this, but I set up kind of a little station here. We use these blocks on as said, the Mars mat. You can really build like crazy compounds with this. This is the Sector Mechanicus stuff stuck on top of it. This is not quite large enough for like Necromunda, but if you kind of like quadruple this, you could, or maybe even double it if you played a smaller game. Like this is some serious Necromunda stuff, you know? You could realistically, you could make Zone Mortalis out of this if you wanted to, right?
Yeah.
You could make enough of this.
Yep.
And pink foam, not that expensive, so.
What set is that? The plastic bits.
It's the Sector Mechanicus,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And so the video here is stopped, but you guys can see that it's not at all hard to do. Yes, you have to add other stuff to it, I find. I would encourage you to add other stuff to it. It can look kind of silly otherwise, but super easy. And man, pink foam just goes such a long way, so easy to work with. And honestly, I think this is about as easy as it gets when it comes to pink foam.
All right, I feel good about this.
All right, let's do it. So all I'm going to do, to start off, we're going to do some hazard striping here. Still a little wet here. I don't really care. I'm actually just going to kind of blot up the wet paint because I didn't really even need to put any attention into this at all since we're going to be hazard striping it. That also might look cool. Who knows? Okay, let's do a little over the shoulder. I think for this spread is going to be the best view. So the first step is really not a lot going on here. I'm just taking my yellow and I'm painting everywhere where the hazard stripe's going to go. Not worried too much at all about anything. Brett did hopefully a good job on the masking. I kind of don't care if it's a little sloppy. Doesn't really matter. So there we go. That's it. Nice and easy. Not going to pull up any of the striping and any of the masking stuff yet because we've got a little bit more to do with this. So that's step one. Nice and easy. Now I'm going to switch my yellow out here real quick. And then when we are done, we're going to go in with the lighter yellow and paint there. Now you're wondering, are there other ways to do hazard striping? And of course there are. This approach is nice though, because you're putting the yellow down first and then you're painting black over top of it. A lot of people are like, oh, what if I'm trying to paint, if I put the black down first and I want to paint the yellow over it, will that be harder to do? Honestly, the answer is with an airbrush, probably not. Probably not that bad. So could you do the black first and then the yellow? You could. I don't think it really matters, but I know this will not cause a problem.
Yeah, and the black probably covers the yellow a little easier. You'd probably have to do multiple coats with the yellow if you did it second.
Yeah, that's very true. So I would say stick with doing the yellow first. So we've got most of that cleared out of the airbrush, but again, I don't really care.
How does this the silly putty interact with the paint? Does the paint just kind of get mixed in with the silly putty and
yeah,
you don't care about it?
Adrian and I were talking a little bit about this yesterday. It like just goes away.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. It's like magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's not how it works. Well, I don't know.
I mean, I know it's not how it works.
Weird.
I understand that things.
Maybe that's why they make it black, because then it hides whatever pigments.
You're not horrified by like 10 years of hobbying.
If it started out a light color, it would just turn into this like puke brown by the time you're done with it 5 years later.
Puke brown would be generous, I think. You'd be lucky if it turned puke brown.
Yeah.
Okay, so after Averlin Sunset, which again, kind of like our toasty wheat gold, not wheat, but yellow ochre a little bit-ish there, we're gonna go in with Phalanx yellow, which is a lot brighter. And that's it, and we're going to just kind of hit the top. Now, you could, if you wanted to, let me think here for a second, you could kind of give this some thought, and I think I will. What I did previously a little bit here, Brett was kind of mentioning about, on the one I've done already, he was kind of mentioning about the kind of variation in the look. You can kind of see some of the Phalanx, you can see some of the Averlin. As far as like what color, we always talk about this, right? What color is the thing? I would say the hazard stripe is very Averlin Sunset. I would say what I'm about to do is kind of like just a little bit of
highlight.
It's like a little bit of a highlight. Since we are going to tint things back down, I'm not too worried about getting too bright here, but that's something I'm slightly thinking about.
Oh, it's great.
So that's it. So we've got a giant yellow top, and that would look really weird. However, I will say this. you could do a lot of cool things. We're talking about all kinds of things you can do with these simple pink foam blocks. We could have, for example, done like a red or some kind of interesting color right here. A little later, one of the last things we're going to also do today is work a little bit here with just some basic stencils that I got from like a craft store. And you could, do like these red or some other color and then stencil like, like designation numbers or something like that on top of it. You could do a lot. You could do a lot of stuff. I think pink foam's fun that way.
Those stencils, you could also create your own. You could cut out. They're just cardstock. So you could buy some plastic sheeting or some cardstock and print on them, and then cut out with a hobby knife and make your own, Tau themed stencils to put Tau markings or Eldar markings or
now here's the
orc
question.
markings.
Orc markings I like. Here's the thing. This is kind of my stylistic integration / stagnation, right? If you were going to make these and say that they were Tau Eldar, would they look this messy?
No, you'd have to do much
You'd have
neater.
to do a really neat job.
Yeah,
right?
you would not want to do Tau markings on this style of.
If an ethereal saw that, he'd be
blocks.
like, "What is going on in this Earthcast? What is going on with the Earthcast in this Sept world?"
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you could maybe imagine that like
They took over.
they took over this human settlement, and then they can't read any of the Gothic texts, so they're just they just stenciled on some signage for wayfinding.
I still think that the Earthcast would be like, those are going to have to go. If they saw me.
And just demolish the whole thing.
I don't know what those are even
Bring
doing.
in some prefab structures.
I don't know what those are even doing right, but
Yeah.
they've got to go. This is not going to work. Okay, so we have got our block here. Now this I do kind of need to wait for it to dry a sec here, because we're gonna put more painter's tape on it, and then we're gonna peel this off. So I need this to dry. So we have a little bit left of
A little more to do on these guys?
a little bit more on these.
Do you want me to finish these orange, or should I move on to finishing the crates?
Well, those are done. Those are actually ready. They're ready to be tinted.
We've got to tint them.
We got to tint them. So,
what do you think?
Well, we can tint everything all at once. At the end. We're gonna have a big tint.
So I'm gonna finish this orange
big
then.
tint party. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, let's do.
No?
Well, I'm thinking. How many are 1, 2, 3? That's plenty for now.
Okay.
Do you want to just touch
Do
them
the
up
light
with
orange?
Yeah, touch
Let's
them
do
up
the
with
light
orange.
All right.
Should I hand this to you?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, I think the hazard striping is. You'd have some other options too. One of the things I'm doing on another same set, this set right here, I'm going to do like some blocks, or at least one block that's like half hazard striping, half not hazard striping. Can kind of play around with it. We sort of did that with this. One of the other things we're doing, Adrian actually tossed out a request to me. He said, "Hey, like I've got a request. When you make a new board, can you make sure there's like a platform?" We actually didn't do this with the Canyon board. I didn't really think about it, but they like to put like a platform down on the spinning thing when they have like the model shots. So I asked Adrian. I said, "Well, do you want hazard stripe model shots, or do you want plain concrete?" And he's like, "Ooh, hazard stripes would be cool. We're a little worried it might be distracting or visually, I don't know, kind of sloppy." So I thought about it, and I'm just going to make both, and he can use it if it makes sense. I think it'll be cool with like white armies maybe, or
Zach, I'm having some technical difficulties here.
with the
Getting the paint out of the bottle.
yeah, I can't stand these bottles. I was telling you this.
Yeah, how do you really feel about dropper bottles?
I don't like dropper bottles for this very reason.
Because the dropper gets clogged.
The dropper almost inevitably always gets clogged. So yeah,
All right, so we're going to shortcut it.
Yeah,
I'm just going to
that's-
pour the paint out.
that's pretty much what I would recommend.
All right.
Yeah, not the biggest fan of dropper bottles.
Because then you also can't get the paint back in very easily without taking this lid off, right?
That's right. How
do you get the paint back
Not the
in?
biggest fan. Brett, I know while you're about to do that, I know there's a couple questions I could, if before you do that, you want to making Brett do like everything literally right now.
Scroll back up.
Ooh, and get the tape off. Yoink.
There we go. Devrim, thanks so much. Excellent vibes to you both. Working on tea light batting light and smoke effects while watching and listening to Chap Hop. Have you ever toyed with similar?
Chap Hop. Davram with the Chap Hop. Have you?
I think he was asking about whether we've done tea light smoke effects.
Oh, I know. He's also kind of asking about the Chap Hop. I know. He's touching on the Chap Hop always. But have you done?
I've not listened to Chap Hop. I know you've dipped your toe in the world.
Yeah.
I have not. However, I've seen tea light smoke effects and cotton batting used for that. But I've not done any of it myself. I guess the closest thing I've come is I built sort of a crashed, back in earlier editions when after a vehicle was destroyed, you left it on the table.
Yeah.
I actually built I got a secondhand devilfish on eBay and built it up as a crashed model. Like I cut it in half and sort of modeled a bunch of battle damage on it, and then used some cotton batting, and I painted it. I didn't use a tea light, but I used some cotton batting that I painted. This is actually the one thing I used the airbrush for, was painting the cotton batting to make it look like smoke coming out of the engine, because I ripped the engine off and there's smoke pouring out. And that's the only thing I've ever done with it was like battle damage. And we have a friend, Joshua, who did something similar. Every time his Lehman Russ would get destroyed, or he did when he popped smoke, he'd put like little cotton batting on the model to remind himself and his opponent that it had popped smoke. But that's it. That's my extent.
Davram, yeah, I've done a few things actually with batting, including what you're talking about right now. So I have done the tea-like batting thing, and I actually did it similar for kind of what Brett was talking about. And I actually bought there's a candles.com. You can go and get like any color tea light, and I bought blue glowing ones for my Tau vehicles. So
can you get the LED, like battery powered ones?
They were battery powered, but
okay.
I don't know that they were LED.
But they're not actual candles that make fire.
They're not fire. Yeah, so you get the LED ones. Wow, you really have not done this before. Okay, yeah, no, definitely don't do that. Anyone listening at home, yeah, don't use real candles. So you take really what Devram's saying, which they call it batting, which is like what people use to stuffed animals. You can get it at like a fabric store. And you kind of glue this tea light to the bottom and shape the batting around it. And it's pretty easy to do. And then, like Brett's saying, really what you want to do is use blacks and grays. I've done both. And you kind of look at how smoke looks like. Look at pictures of like smoke from a car wreck or something like that. And you typically do kind of like darker down at the bottom and have it get lighter up at the top.
Yeah.
And that will actually, believe it or not, that actually makes the candle look better. Like if you do it the other way around, the glow effect won't be as good. So Davram, I have done it before. It's been fun. I'll tell you another one I did. This one was a little unique. A few years ago, Games Workshop got really into their flyers, and I always think flyers are super cool. Brett and I play Nautica. I'm really into the dogfighting flyers thing. And they had released some games, some ways to play only with flyers.
It's like Sky Shield Attack or something?
Well, there was Storm Cloud Attack. And then that I did play, and it was okay. Like a lot of their box games from that era, they were kind of like a way to sell their models.
Right.
And so I played that, but they also had just released like 40K, like how to just play a dogfight.
Oh, interesting.
They had a few different scenarios for it. And is it clogged or?
Nope, I'm just cleaning it for you.
Thank you.
Cleaning it. Yeah. Zach was commenting on my airbrush cleaning job earlier.
So they had just kind of like generic rules for how to play. Only with flyers, and I ended up making clouds with the batting, what you're talking about. So the way I did that...
I'm not going to go to the nth degree this one, because you're painting a yellow. I was just painting a light orange.
I'm doing black, actually, even better.
Oh, okay, so that doesn't matter.
So yeah, what we did is we made clouds, and the way we made the clouds, same kind of process, Davram. We actually did... I took these styrofoam balls, like that, again, you get from like a craft store. They're not quite pink foam. They truly are styrofoam. Then we went and we got the candles. And the candles, you could actually stick them to the styrofoam ball, and you could stick them, if I recall right, we actually stuck them, like the little flame, the fake flame, into the ball, and it still glowed enough. So we stuck a few in like that. I think I also glued them in. So the battery also has to be facing out. That's important. The little switch to turn the candle on, right? So believe it or not, it doesn't make sense, but when you shove the candle into the styrofoam ball, the glow still comes out.
Really?
Yeah. And so the kind of styrofoam ball, the kind of styrofoam ball I had, which was white and very not very dense at all. So we put a few in there, and sometimes I did just one, but usually I did like one large ball like this big, and then like maybe like a softball or one of those little mini basketballs, and then kind of like more of a baseball size stuck to it that we glued or put a rod. I put like a rod in, stuck it on there, and glued it. Almost like you're making like a science, like you're a kid and you're doing like the solar system, right? And so we did that, and then what we did is we put the candles in all over so that they flash blue, but mostly we put them in the bottom, like 1, 2, 3, 4 in the bottom, and then we covered them with the batting, and then we did gray and black, and then to get them to levitate, we took these acrylic rods, acrylic disc, that I got from, we have this local plastic store in the area called Tap Plastics in the Bay Area, but any major metropolitan area is going to have like your guys that do stuff with acrylic plastic and that kind of thing. Acrylic glue to stick the rod to the base and then jam the ball down under the rod, and you had these clouds, and we had these clouds that moved around, and they actually had some rules for like what you're playing, and there's clouds, right?
So this was terrain for the 40K dogfight game.
Exactly. We used it some other times too. Like it was cool. You just have like clouds on the battlefield. You can make rules up for them. But the cool thing was like that light blue stuff. What it did is when you flipped all those on, and flipping them on is kind of a pain in the butt because you had to like push through the clouds and find the candles. But when you did that, you pushed through the clouds and found the candles and turned them on. It looked like not only was it a cloud, but that it had like lightning, like a lightning storm, right? Like heat lightning. Here's a long-winded answer to Avram to your question. We've done it. I've done a lot of it. Here's sort of my thing I don't like about those. They just take up a lot of room. Like you end up storing them in like a plastic bag, and they take up a lot of room. I think at some point I moved and just threw them all away.
I
know.
Ty just asked if you still had those, and we could post some pictures of them.
Nope.
Do you have some photos? No, this was probably from before.
Yeah, oh sure, we have photos. I could find photos.
Before digital cameras were a thing.
No, this was not that long ago. Before digital cameras were a thing. Brett, we're not that old.
Oh, no, I have a bunch of photos from like 2005, 2006 that were taken on like, that I had to scan in because digital cameras were a thing, but like, not super common.
Now, one of the things I just want to show you guys here real quick is I'm kind of lining, just to keep my hazard striping somewhat consistent. You can see I'm like lining it up with something else I've already hazard striped. So to this end, I'm not like super like concerned about getting everything exactly 1 inch. If you are super concerned about getting everything 1 inch, you just put a blank layer like that in there. And then you put this guy right on the edge here. Like that, and then you take this one off. And this is cool too. It's a nice litmus test. You can see our tape is working great.
Oh, so you get them spaced right.
You can get them spaced right that way. Because I will say this actually, if your angles are weird, or if like you have more space here and it gets thinner down here, it's gonna be noticeable. When you paint black lines on yellow, if you're kind of goofing off while you do it,
you want them to be parallel. You want them to be evenly spaced.
Yeah. Not a lot of room to mess up and not have it become obviously extremely super visible. Sorry, Ty. Yeah, we threw those away. I'm kind of like in my local club. People freak out, but I like love to throw stuff away. My wife and I are like super big into like re-cleaning our whole apartment, and my 40K stuff is like always on the chopping block there. So I'll just like, haven't gone to these like Mark III 30K sprues in a while. I know there's a bunch of bolt rifles on there, but I don't care. Go and get in the recycling bin, or I'll post it in our group. hey, does anyone want this? You have 3 hours to come here and get it, or it's going in the recycling bin.
Yeah, Zach is notorious for just throwing things in the garbage when it's like a certain amount of time has gone by and he's not used it.
Yeah, or I'm just like not up to my contemporary standards or whatever. Okay.
Always looking forward.
Always looking forward. So we've got our hazard tape here. The rest of this, super easy. I mean, I could probably hand this to you guys and you'd be like, oh, duh, I know what to do here. So we're just gonna spray the black all over. This is Abaddon black, which is what we do first. I really do want to kind of give like a final check. I don't like the streaky, like where it looks like the black bled into the yellow. So I am kind of always doing like a final check to make sure it's really pushed down. I've yet to have any of this painter's tape peel any of it off when it comes off. So maybe this will be the first time, but I haven't, like I said, I haven't had it yet. So I would say just go for it. And again, with this first color, Abaddon black, we're not super concerned about any kind of like anything. We're just getting it on, and there it is. Yeah. It's on. Boom. So that's going to dry for a second, and while that dries, I'm going to clean this out just a little bit because we are going to use Corvus black. Now, if you wanted the highlight to be a little more aggressive, you could use like Adept Mechanicus Standard Gray or Dawnstone or like one of the colors we used on the rest of this thing. I actually don't want it to be that aggressive though. Brett, how are you doing?
Good. I'm going to start using this silver paint pen on the barrels here. We talked about using silver pen just to highlight some of the top circles a little bit.
And I like that idea. You can see I just sat down by Brett. I've worked with this kit before, and I just sat down beside him a kit that I did not put the circles on.
This one here, yeah.
And I don't know. It's just.
I think it's fine.
No, I think it's
kind of blends
better.
in. Yeah. It's a little bit too. I mean, you want the terrain to blend in. That's one of the things we're going for. Is the terrain should complement the models, but not overshadow them in terms of brightness or contrast or level of detail. But yeah, these ones that you did before, they're maybe a little bit too far in that direction.
They're like very blended. They'd be like. I don't know. They're really like you wouldn't notice them, you know, and maybe that's okay. But
so I'm just gonna pick out these circles with the silver paint pen, and then before we do our tinting, and then the next steps, we'll do a tinting here to bring back some of this bright orange. This is quite bright right now, so we'll tint these to bring back some of that brightness to just scale it back a little bit, and then we'll do a quick dry brush to give it a bit of a worn look.
Yeah. Okay, now over here, I am going to now, still a little wet, but I think we'll be fine. I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to hit Corvus black on the hazard striping now. So the way I did it is I chose to kind of do it not in the center of the piece. Just when you get a chance, Brett, let's look top down for a sec, or shoulder maybe. Let's see, there we go, yeah. I'm going to kind of hit around the edges a little bit. I'm almost going to do like a ring and leave the center darker. And then right after that, we can peel the tape off. The paint is still a little damp. I don't care about that for putting Corvus over top of Abaddon. Corvus black over top of Abaddon. And I definitely wouldn't do that if this was like a model. Like if I was painting a Suriani or like a Tau vehicle, I would not do that. But again, super.
But it's terrain.
Not worried about it for terrain. Now I am going to be a little bit more serious about not pulling up the tape quite yet. While
do you need to wait for it to dry while it's before it? Do you need to wait for it to dry before you pull the tape up?
I don't. We could find out. I think the answer is no. I know when I did these earlier in the week, when I made all the other ones, I did wait for it to dry.
I think you have to be a little more careful if you do it while it's wet, but I guess I don't know either.
I think that's the case. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give this airbrush a little bit of a clean out. And while I do that, or when I'm done doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tape off around the sides because we don't need that anymore.
Right. And we've got another question we can take.
Oh, cool.
This one is from Ty.
Oh, cool. Hi, Ty.
Hi, Ty. Let me find your question. Hey Titans, loving the hobby streams. If you could choose a new terrain kit for GW to produce, what would it be? Also, what's your dream army to collect? Two-parter.
You first, Brett. Let's do one part at a time.
Okay.
You first with terrain.
Terrain kit.
Yeah. I think I know how both of us are going to answer this. I have a guess how both of us might answer this.
So, what I want is a battle suit, like mech bay, basically. I want like a forward operating base where like battle suits come to like get refitted, repaired. There's a piece of GW. Well, actually, I don't know if it's GW. I think it's GW artwork that shows like a crisis suit in some kind of bay being supported on its jetpack with like an Earthcast dude like with a tablet, and he's like refitting
if it's
some
not,
things.
I think it is, but if it's not, it's awesome.
Artwork.
It's like super well done. I know what you're talking
instantly
about.
know what I'm talking about. Like I want that train piece. Like they did the Orc mech shop, and I feel like the Tau equivalent of that would make me super happy. I'm actually like borderline gonna just make my own because I think it would be a cool diorama opportunity, but you know, honestly, I don't want to have to do that. I would love it if GW just made one, and then that could, I'm sure they'd do a much better job. But yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah.
What about you?
Ty, my Brett. Look, I'm doing this again. My answer is similar to Brett. I don't even know, kind of like the Sector Mechanicus treatment where they made like, you know, Sector Mechanicus, it's like 5 or 6 or maybe 8 different sprues repackaged in all kinds of different ways. I do want to see that with Tau. I just want to see, they've already got the defense line, and the defense line's an amazing kit. It's such a good kit.
Yeah.
Is it running out?
Well, yeah, I can't tell if it's just getting paint covered up on it or maybe it's just running out.
Try.
Yeah.
It might be running out. You switch to
fine.
gold. Who cares?
Switch to gold.
It'll be fine. Yeah.
It's terrain.
It's terrain. We should be careful with how, I guess, lackadaisical. I should be careful with how lackadaisical I sometimes am. Oh, Brett, sorry. If you want to, if people love the masking reveal, right? Here we go. Pulling these off. We're getting our hazard striping here. But yeah, I just want to see. I want to see like that. I want to see Tau stuff get like that Sector Mechanicus treatment of like make like 5, 6, 7, 8 different sprues, sell them to me in all kinds of different packages. I would like to see. Yes, a mech, the bay for suits, for like a Riptide. I want to be able to fit my little Riptide in there, G.I. Joe style. Yeah, I super just want Tau stuff. You know, like here's the thing. I have this kind of theory about the lore of the 40K world, and really like the 40K world is the story of civilizations, right? It's the story of 4 civilizations, and then all the other armies are like either a force of nature, or they're like kind of like a like some kind of force of nature, right?
Right.
But those civilizations
They're foils. They're things for those 4 civilizations to fight against.
Right, and we're seeing the 4 civilizations on like a wave. Like, so we've got the Tau who are on the upside, right? They're going up. We've got the Imperium who's eternally at this precipice of the roller coaster, about to go over. Then very far down, you've got the Aldari.
Yeah.
Right? And then on the way back up, you've got the Necrons.
Right.
Those are the 4 civilizations we really follow in 40K. If you think about everybody else, Orcs, Tyranids, they're not really civilizations.
And Chaos is really humans.
Chaos is, again, like that force of nature. That is, right? And so I want to see, we see Imperial stuff all over the galaxy. They've just got these worlds littered with their ruins and stuff. I want to start seeing, like, finished Tau buildings, and I want to see that story of civilization that I guess I've made up in my mind. I want Games Workshop to lean into that. And I want to see worlds where it's like, hey, here's finished Tau stuff. It's not ruined because they built it like 2 days ago. And they take care of it because they know how to do that right now. They don't have the same issues the Imperium has, right? So, yeah, I'm with you. I just want to see Tau stuff, honestly.
I think I would even be happy with a similar type of terrain piece for the Imperium. If it was some, like, not a manufactorum, not like a hab block, not like a residence or an administrative building. I want to see like a night mech bay or like a Lehman Russ repair facility. Like I want to be able to like, or a barracks or like a med bay or something where you've got operating table and like, I don't know, some of this is getting into like interior stuff, and maybe it's more kill team terrain than it is 40K terrain, but.
I want to see an apothecary station for Space Marines where you just park your Marines around it.
And they all come back to life
And they
magically?
just all come back to life magically.
But only one per turn.
No, it's got to be like a unit per turn.
Oh no, it has rules.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's got rules. Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Okay, so here, last masking reveal
Okay,
here.
all right.
On I've taken off the stripes. The black paint's still a little wet, so I'm going to be careful. But around the edges, we've got nice, clean, no hazard striping there. So I'm going to take the putty off now. And the putty is like kind of hides. It's especially like near the black, but it comes off super easy. Yoink. And there we have it. Nice and easy. And then we get this look where, you know, it's not painted yellow, so it looks like it was painted and then shot, or, you know, someone dropped something there or whatever. So there we go. Has easy hazard striping for terrain. I used 1-inch thick blue tape. You could cut this thinner and do like really fine hazard stripes, but I'd be careful because on terrain, again, you know, if you have like to Adrian's point about like a platform, and maybe if we did a hazard stripe platform, it'd be too weird. If you did like really fine stripes, it's going to be visually busy. That's a good word, Bridger. Bridger's off to the side doing a little embroidery. So he's right. It would be very busy if you did super fine stripes. By contrast, I think if I did like 2-inch thick tape, I don't know if that would look good.
This is perfect.
This is perfect, I think, 1-inch thick. So
you know, and it doubles as engagement range.
Oh yeah, you can
put your model there, and you're like, "Am I?" Oh, it's obvious.
Yeah, I'm into it. I didn't even think about that.
Adrian and Grotworks in chat are very offended that we called orcs a force of nature and not a civilization.
The tape.
I'm giving you all the things except for the.
Yeah, I'm just like pointing. I'm actually asking for a peanut butter jelly sandwich.
Oh.
That's directly off camera that I would like. No, sorry, Adrian. We can chat about this tomorrow or something. But I guess they are kind of a civilization. But I would say like they just kind of do their thing. They haven't changed really much. They're not progressing through, and even their story, right? Like they were made by the old ones along with the Aldari. Like look, the Aldari went from like then doing all kinds of really awesome stuff, running the galaxy, having their fall, all this stuff. Orcs have kind of just always been orcs.
They've gotten bigger.
They've got actually orcs by size. Wait, do you mean recently?
No, I'm saying like as they get older, they get bigger. So like
wait,
simply
you mean bigger, more orcs? Or
no,
larger?
I'm saying like orcs physically, that you can tell their age by their size.
Right, but actually the average orc size, a lot of people don't know this, the average orc size has decreased. That's Eleanor, right, which is the battle right before the Great Crusade. Or the end of the Great Crusade, right before heresy starts.
Yeah.
They fought orcs that were like monster size, like bigger than the Emperor, just like colossal size orcs. Like, and after that battle, orcs like took a serious tumble.
Because they killed all the big ones.
Yeah, they've been like building up their size back up. So there is some element to that, but I just don't think that's like much of a civilization.
Yeah, they haven't culturally, developed a whole lot.
Look,
in the last 10,000 years.
Look, like the culture is actually an interesting concept. The races I named, you can find evidence of another species being culturally involved with all of them, right?
Yeah.
So the Tau have human colonies, right? The Asuryani have hung out with Guilliman. They dated for a while, right? Guilliman dated an elf, space elf for a while. Necrons, they've got the
little sus.
Yeah, the Blackstone Fortress stuff, and like the Necrons, like there's like been a lot of interactions between these civilizations. The only interaction you have with orcs is when they show up to like smash your head into a wall, right? Like you're not having like cultural exchanges with orcs.
Right.
I mean they might consider it a culture.
I feel like the Tau tried that, and it didn't go well.
Didn't go well.
But yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if orcs are quite a civilization. I guess it's a blend, right? Yeah. The second part of his question was dream armies to collect. What's your dream army to collect, right?
Oh my gosh, I feel it's going to be some super hipster.
Of course,
answer.
Of course, it is. We all know.
It's probably not a 40K army. It's probably. It's probably the BFG Forge World fleet.
Oh, I thought you were gonna be like it's like Boers from the Africana War, like a historical.
No, not historicals.
Oh, great.
I'm constraining my answer to the 41st millennium.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the BFG Forge World fleet. It's out of print now.
The Tau
BFG Forge World fleet. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mention that. And I have the old pewter models, and I really enjoy the game BFG, but the Tau have, for those who don't know, the Tau have 2 fleets in the game, which is a little much, but they have sort of an old colonist fleet that was made by GW and is pewter, and they have a newer model line, which is made by Forge World.
Is there an orc fleet?
There is, yeah.
I guess that goes against my civilization.
Well, half of their spaceships are stuff they stole from other people or asteroids that they strapped engines to and crash into other planets.
That is not, those are not the hallmarks of a civilization.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, yeah, the Forge World Tau fleet is out of print. You can't buy it anymore. eBay, the models on eBay are stupidly expensive. And although there are some models that are 3D design models that look similar to these, nobody's actually recreated the exact models for 3D printing, and so being a bit obsessive about these things, I'm holding off on trying to wait. I guess waiting is the wrong thing to do. You just gotta.
Now, by the way, well, guys,
You're tinting now?
I'm doing a little tinting for this board. I'm doing Null and Oil, and I'm just doing a little tinting. Let me get this fan to blow that away. There we go. Okay. This always makes a huge mess in the air here. So I'm tinting a little bit with Null and Oil. And Brent and I are going to do a little spray pass here. I'm gonna tint these. And he's got all the barrels and stuff over near him. So I'm going to let him tint those. Now, we're really just thinking about this as coloration, right? We're not saying well, I've got to tint here because there's a shadow here. Maybe that is why, but you're not. Again, you're not overthinking this. Don't overthink this. I'd like you to not overthink this. That's my advice to you, right? So just spray some areas down. It's going to look natural. It's going to look great. I'm going to fill this up here and pass it to Brett. He's laughing.
Chat is loving and hating our commentary on Orc Civilization.
If it's a civilization.
I think my favorite comment so far is by Displeased Sociopath, who says, "I'm imagining an orc Bob Ross finger painting in blood, beating the heck out of a grot instead of a brush." Presumably having the exact same conversation we're having now, but coming to the opposite conclusion that the only protagonists in the galaxy are orcs, and maybe Tyranids, and everyone else is just a force for them to fight against.
Yeah. Here's
I think it's hilarious.
Here's something else, though. Actually, I wanted to bring up. You mentioned just if we can talk about this. I know I still owe Ty an answer for my Dream Army to collect. If we can talk about this for a second, what is, and Brett, you can just be super sloppy and just
yeah, it's not coming out.
It's not coming out. Yes, it is.
Slowly but surely coming out.
Yeah. Just push down like crazy.
It's all the way down.
Really?
It doesn't go to 11.
Can I see for a sec?
That fixed it?
It's fixed.
Maybe.
There you go. Okay. That's how Badger Patriot works. You just keep going. Is it clogging now? Yeah, there you go. You mentioned the eBay pricing being crazy on these old pewter.
No, it's the
Forge World.
Forge World ones, yeah.
Okay. That makes a little more difference. I often what is going people will on eBay. I've noticed these really insanely high prices on old models.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it is. If something still is fine cast,
people want the metal.
And the new rules just came out. They're and that model suddenly became good. Crutox, for example. Tau as a codex is in a bad place, but Crutox are actually halfway decent. And so they're a fine cast model. And so if you want to play a unit of Crutox, you don't own them, your choices are either buy new from GW and deal with Finecast, or go to eBay and get an old pewter model.
I guess that makes sense.
And I think that's where every once in a while the pewter prices on eBay, secondhand pewter prices, will go through the roof.
I see.
Just because people don't want to deal with Finecast. That's my theory.
I see these prices on eBay, and If Megan was here, she would be rolling her eyes because this is like the big like from the other room. Like, Megan, you're never gonna guess what I saw on eBay today. Like, right? Like this is like my rant, right? And I see these prices on eBay, and I'm just like, where are these prices coming from? Like, who's going? Like, and then like. You see that item over and over again, right? Like, right now, I can tell everybody there is when they used to release boxes of armies, there's a box that is like pretty good for what you get of a Suryani, of Craft World Eldar on eBay right now. It's like a big box. It's like the big one, not like the little this one that GW sells for $90.
Battle Force. Or
and those those were
boxes.
only ever like 2 something, right?
Yeah.
This is being sold on eBay for $500, and it's still there. And I know it's still there, unless like I guess in the last maybe I want to say 48 hours, but because if I go on eBay and I'm buying a Suryani, and I bought a lot off eBay during COVID because it was hard to get them from anywhere else.
Right. Not even, it's still new in box, just from, secondhand sellers.
Exactly. So I got a lot off eBay, and I just kept seeing that box there. And eventually I was like, had I bought that box first, it might have been an okay bargain, but I just know that that's not how much that stuff costs, right? Like,
I think there's a lot of...
It's such a weird,
I think there's a lot of that stuff where people are just like, there's a sucker born every minute. I'm just going to put this up, and it doesn't cost me anything to have the auction posted, so I'll just leave it up, and maybe somebody 6 months from now will buy it, and I'll make $100.
I'm giving him a free advertisement now too. I'm saying go online, guys. If you want to spend $500 on this giant box, it's there. It's been there forever. Every time I look at Suryani up, maybe I'll get a Wraith Lord, and I look it up. It's like it shows up. It's like $500. Like you looked at this. It shows like all the dates I looked at it. I'm just like,
so depressing.
So okay, real quick.
Where are we at?
We're almost done.
Green.
This is the green. So when you're tinting, again, like we talk about tinting. You guys have heard me talk about tinting. Carefully think about your tint colors. I like to use browns, greens, and blacks. Black non-oil is almost not like much of a natural tint. I mean, it is. But it's just kind of to bring things back down. It's just a general messy look. Like, I love the way it looks on industrial stuff or cities. Camo shade, which is the color I'm using here now, Anthonian camo shade. I use this on the Canyon board as well. I'm using it here. I use this to represent a plant-like kind of ecosystem that has not the most access to like endless vibrance of life. And what do I mean by that? Well, I wouldn't use this if I was doing a jungle, or I might, but I'd also probably use Bealtan. And I would use this in like the desert, or this is like an Arctic place, right? That has like a quick summer for a few months, and then it goes back to being covered in snow. So I like Anthonian camo shade for that. But my point is, if you are tinting with multiple colors, which is always a cool thing to do, by the way, usually, if non-oil is one of them, use that first. And if I was going to instead do maybe like Agarak's Earth Shade and Anthonian Camo, which I might maybe do that mix for like a marsh. Probably wouldn't do it for industry.
Yeah.
But like
that sounds like a good combo for marsh.
For a marsh.
Sepia from the Agraks and some green from this camo shade.
If I was going to do that, I'd probably always do the green last. I'd probably always do like a black or a brown first. And that's it. And don't be afraid, by the way, when you're doing this, to like get ugly with this stuff. Like right here, I'm just gonna do that. It looks kind of like a mess. I'm gonna like push it around a little bit. I don't know what that is. That's gross. It was like something start to grow there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what this green is like, almost moss or algae growth, and it looks great.
So, with that. We have finished these.
Do you want me to put some of this on the barrels as well?
All over the barrels, all over the crates as well. Oh, did we tint the crates yet?
Did not.
Okay, we'll do it after.
I'll just do the two that I did.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Previously.
Not hard, and by the way, super good. As you guys saw here, super good buddy project. Get a few people together, cut up some pink foam, get some scatter. Here's the deal with pink foam plus scatter. We actually could have a full board now, even without trees. One is all the way on
Oh, here they are.
Yeah, they are.
All right, so I'm going to start with these.
We could have a full board just with this stuff, right? And the scatter itself sits on top. I would actually probably, if that was going to be the case, I'd probably have some lower pink foam blocks. Don't make all of them like quite so high. I just touched this, but I'm going to try to make that work. Okay, don't have them all quite so high. Have like a few lower ones. The scatter on top of it is going to look awesome.
I love the way this.
Can I have that?
I love the way this green looks.
Yeah, it's super great.
So great. Like it's almost it's what I want Nuln Oil to be, but it actually this green looks just better than Nuln Oil for doing its job if you're playing in a place that has sort of a green tint about it, like a forest or like a something like that.
Yeah, and then we'll put a little bit of barrels up here. And then we'll go in Glam Cam, and you guys can see. And there it is. So this would block line of sight. Oh, it is on. Okay. That would block line. Oh, a little tall. Hey, is that going to make it? That's going to make it worse sometimes.
Push it towards the center.
And better other times. Or here we can do this. There we go.
Nice.
A little glossy still because we're drying, but that's it. You can see that's plenty. I mean, it's not a ton of cover, but we have more barrels. And like, look, you got like a little 5-man squad up there. They're gonna get cover. You know, you count as the ruins, you count as an industrial structure. Like I said, blocks line of sight. And if you were only gonna if you wanted to make a board on the cheap, and you wanted to only get like maybe a couple boxes of the Games Workshop Unitorium crates, which come with barrels, ammo crates, and shipping containers. You could buy a couple boxes of those. That would run you between 80 and 100 bucks. You could buy, I would say, 4 or 5 slabs of pink foam. That would be about 30, 40 bucks. And that's it. Other than that, it's just the paints. And it could be a complete board. I would personally add some moss at least. And I know we're laughing, but it would make it look good.
Yeah, this is perfect.
Hey, that's it. We made some pink foam industrial slabs, tall ones, so they block line of sight. Again, you can make them shorter. Actually, I will be making shorter ones for this board that we're going to actually be adding the Ryza runes to, and we're going to show you in the upcoming weeks how to get a lot of mileage out of those Ryza runes. They're small. They're only about 2.5 inches tall, so on their own, they have really not a lot of utility. But we're going to add them to pink foam to give them a base, give them a little bit of boundary, give them some height. So you could make this board for pretty cheap. Pink foam slabs, just some scatter, simple techniques. We did airbrush. I'd recommend it. It's a great way to start airbrushing.
Yeah, honestly, the airbrush is great for models, but and we talked about fear of airbrushing being one of my hobby roadblocks, and this terrain kind of work has been a great just excuse to get stick time with the airbrush, and it's helped me overcome that really well.
Yeah, I super recommend it to anyone working paint.
So we're working with Ryza Ruins in a couple weeks.
So the Ryza Ruins is actually a video we're going to put out.
Got it. Okay.
That I'm working on. We do have a train video coming out. Adrian's the schedule master, so if he's still in chat, I have to ask him. But we do have a video coming out that actually shows how I built the roots for those trees, the pine trees for the canyon.
Yep.
We use Magic Sculpt, and the video kind of takes you through that process of how to use Magic Sculpt to make tree roots.
I'm super curious, but I've not seen that video yet. So
oh yeah,
super excited.
But we've seen the trees, right?
Yeah, the trees look great.
So again, very easy to do. Check out Magic Sculpt. Get yourself some Magic Sculpt. Even before you've seen the video, I'd say go online, go on Amazon, get some Magic Sculpt. That's what we have coming out. Guys are playing, of course. Tomorrow is, I'm looking at Bridger. Sigmar. Tomorrow's Sigmar.
Broke against something.
Okay.
Dinosaurs against Chaos, I think.
Dinosaurs against
Yeah.
Chaos?
Dinosaurs against Chaos.
And then Bridger, it's Saturday?
I'm playing Custodians against Brett.
Bridger's playing Custodies on Saturday. Everybody's going to be really
Get
excited.
hype. Yeah.
Because they love to harass Bridger.
And if you ask nicely enough, he'll play with his Custodies, which would be a treat.
Would be a treat. Do we have any more questions, or are we good?
Yes, we do. Let me find real quick.
Oh, do you want to click user activity?
Nope, I can do this.
Oh, there we go. Even better.
Thank you. I have to figure out how to pronounce your name. I apologize if I mess this up. Shmi Boloki for the message. Hello, Titans. Wanted to get your thoughts on the idea of converting an Ogren/Ogre army with the intent to use them as custodies. Well, I think custodies have a very specific look about them. So, I don't know, I guess as Ogren, you're imagining that you would start with, sort of abhumans, just really big, an army of abhumans that you would use the Custodies rules for, I guess.
I'm thinking that's what he's saying.
I'm not thinking you would, it probably wouldn't work to stick, Custodies armor on and with, start with a Custodies body and put, an Ogren head on it.
Like they've gained a lot of weight there in the Imperial Palace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think mostly it's just about giving them the right weapons so that, when the guys with guns look like they're supposed to have guns, and the guys with spears are supposed to have spears, and sword and board are supposed to have sword and board. I don't know, Zach, do you have any thoughts?
I think an approach I might take is not using Ogren kit, although the Ogren kit's pretty cool. I think you're going to have to use some of the Ogren kit. I kind of like the idea, give yourself a thought, give yourself a theme. What is this, right? What is this? It's ogres in the 41st millennium. So are there ogres in the 41st millennium? I mean, probably, but tell us your story. Tell yourself your story first. I think I would say, is it an abhuman world? Are they part of the Imperium? Or are they a world that's separated from the Imperium during the Exodus, around the year 20,000 and just haven't been found yet, and here they are. And what are they? That's going to kind of help guide how you make them. Yeah,
you have to have good modeling justification for the fact that they're strength 5 and have a 2-up save and have a 4-up invuln and have all of this amazing stats.
Right. So are they kind of how we traditionally think of an ogre, which is kind of dumb, big dumb strong guy, or did they go form a civilization? Is this the true 5th civilization of the 40K world, right? Did they go and kind of start, and they've got this technology for invuln saves? So now you're kind of looking at different model lines, right? But you could combine all kinds of cool things. You could combine ogre kits from Age of Sigmar. What are they called? Tusk something Raiders, Bridger no, Tuskclaw Raiders, Beastclaw Raiders. Yeah, this is ogres, right? Yeah, he's giving a thumbs up. Yeah, something like that. You could combine kits with that, with even some maybe Tau stuff. Maybe they're trading with the Tau. Everybody trades with the Tau, right? Where do they get their invuln saves? Maybe they've got they've got kind of their primitive gear, but you're taking all your Tau buddies' shield generator kits and kind of gluing them onto their straps, in the front, or they're holding them the little shield generator, and they've got their
If you wanted to use the actual Ogren kits as a starting point, they've got shields. They've got the slab shields and the whatever the one that's called, it gives you the invuln. And they've got big sticks that you could say, I guess you'd have a little trouble making those look like power weapons, but.
Well, the thing I would think about is,
and there's parts of the army that you just would you would just not have a real hard time converting as jet bikes and hovering tanks. The Imperium doesn't really have a whole lot of that in the Imperial Guard line.
Yeah, I think that's why you gotta kind of like you're saying, you they don't have that. So I would say I would almost want. It's an interesting idea. The more I think about it, but I would almost definitely probably take some of the Ogren kit, or maybe even avoid that kit, because you're talking about the shields. Those shields are Imperial. They are Ogren. They are Imperial aesthetic. So again, if you want that, you can do that. You can definitely do, like we said, an abhuman world. That's part of the Imperium. I think it's almost more interesting to make this kind of bizarre, backwoods tribe that maybe has been trading with the Tau, or
they're not humans, but
not Necrons, but something, right? They've got some other alien technology. Yeah, it's kind of a fun idea.
Interesting question.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. We did it.
We did it.
We made some slabs. We talked about our hobby roadblocks. We had a very deep conversation down a rabbit hole about civilization and culture and
Yeah.
protagonists in the 41st millennium. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We certainly had fun.
Yeah.
And we'll be back here next week doing this again.
Doing it again. Guys, always be creating.